a year of power, a year of deals, a year the world won't forget. Donald Trump was back in the White House, but he wasn't just looking at America. His eyes were on the Gulf, and the billions waiting there. Oil, weapons, data, influence. This wasn't just politics. It was business. It was history in the making. This is the story of Trump and the Gulf billions. Who gained, who lost, and what it cost the world. Chapter 1. Trump is back. The year is 2025. The world watches and waits because Donald Trump is back. He wins the U.S. election again. Some people cheer, others are shocked. The old slogans return, "Make America Great Again." But now, something feels different. Trump is older, but not quieter. He is louder, faster, bolder. And this time, he wants more than just applause. He looks east, across the ocean, to the deserts of the Gulf, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar. These are not enemies. These are partners, maybe even treasure chests. And Trump knows where the gold is buried. 1 week after taking office, Trump makes a call. It's to Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia. A strong voice answers. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. They call him MBS. Trump smiles. MBS, he says. Let's make the biggest deal of our lives. MBS laughs. Let's do it. Behind the scenes, the plan is big. Money, oil, weapons, technology, billions of dollars. Trump wants Gulf money flowing into U.S. banks, tech companies, and weapons factories. In return, he offers protection, power, and access. You want AI? You want F-35 jets? We've got them, Trump says, but it's going to cost you. And the Gulf states are ready. Because they don't just want safety. They want status. They want to be players on the world stage. In Washington, the deals move fast. Very fast. 1 week, a $12 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia. Next week, a $10 billion data center project backed by the UAE. Then, a secret energy pact with Qatar. Oil for tech, gas for drones. Money pours in. Stock prices rise. American factories roar to life. Trump holds a rally. They said we were finished. Wrong. We just made the biggest oil tech deal in history. And we're just getting started. Crowds cheer. But outside the stadium, the world is uneasy. In Europe, leaders frown. He's playing a dangerous game, says one German official. This is not diplomacy. This is business. In the streets of Beirut, Baghdad, and Cairo, people protest. No more weapons, one woman shouts. Stop selling war. But back in Texas, workers are happy. We've got jobs again, says one oil engineer. Trump made it happen. In the Gulf, things change too. New towers rise in Riyadh. Robots clean shopping malls in Doha. AI surveillance systems watch city streets in Abu Dhabi. Smart cities, the headlines say. made in America, paid with Gulf gold. The rulers are proud. Their people? Some are proud too. Others worry. Are we buying power or losing control? A student asks in Dubai. Meanwhile, Trump moves fast, faster than anyone expected. He sends troops to guard Gulf oil fields. He opens a new military base near the Strait of Hormuz. He says, "We are protecting peace and profits." Some Americans ask, are we back in the Middle East forever? Trump answers, only as long as the money keeps flowing. The deals keep coming. A Saudi-American space launch, a Qatari investment in Silicon Valley, a defense AI system tested in the desert. And Trump? He boasts. We're winning again. And this time, it's with Gulf money, Gulf power, Gulf friends. But behind the big words, questions grow. Who really wins? The billionaires? The rulers? And who loses? The workers in war zones? The families under drones? Or the young people from Michigan to Muscat who dream of peace, not power? The world is watching. The money is moving. And Trump is just getting started. The next chapter? Even he doesn't know. But one thing is sure. The Gulf billions have entered the game. And there's no going back. Chapter 2. A visit to Riyadh. The plane touched down. Hot desert air blew across the runway. Trump stepped out, smiling wide. Red carpet, golden stairs, soldiers in white uniforms, cameras flashing everywhere. "Welcome back, Mr. President," said a voice. It was MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. They shook hands. They smiled for the world. But the real story was inside the palace. That night in Riyadh, the lights of the city were bright, but the brightest lights were at Al Yamama Palace. Gold ceilings, marble floors, long tables with silver plates. Trump sat across from MBS. Translators stood ready. Security guards watched every door. Then, the doors closed. No cameras, no press, just business. "We want stronger ties," said Trump. MBS nodded. "And we want results." They talked for hours about oil, about money, about weapons. The room was quiet, but the deals were loud. By morning, the papers were ready. $25 billion arms deal signed. New energy partnership with Saudi oil giant. AI cooperation between U.S. and Gulf tech firms. Trump called it a historic day. He said, "This is how peace is made, through strength, trade, and respect." The Gulf leaders smiled. Their message was clear. We are not just rich, we are important. Back in Washington, people asked questions. "Why is he making deals with them?" asked a senator. "Why are we selling more weapons to the Gulf?" Trump answered in his own way. Because they pay. Because they invest. Because they want to win. And so do we. The arms deal included fighter jets, missiles, radar systems, cyber defense tools. The energy deal promised cleaner oil production, new tech, and long-term supply. And the AI deal? That was the secret one. Smart weapons. Face recognition. Drones that think. Some officials warned, "This is dangerous." But others said, "This is the future." In Riyadh, construction began. A new joint tech center, half American, half Saudi. Robots were tested in the desert. Military officers trained together in secret camps. It wasn't just business. It was alliance. And Trump wanted to show it off. He visited a weapons factory in the U.S. "See this?" he said, pointing to a missile. "Saudi Arabia helped pay for it. American workers built it. Everyone wins." People clapped. Jobs were returning. Money was flowing. But in Yemen, the war continued. Bombs still fell. Families still ran. Children still cried. "Made in America," said a reporter, standing near the rubble. The world started asking hard questions. In Europe, leaders warned, "This deal makes the Gulf stronger, and the West weaker." In Iran, the government grew angry. "They are surrounding us," said an Iranian general. "They want control of the region." But Trump didn't stop. He gave a speech in Riyadh before he left. In the past, people said the U.S. was weak. Now they know we are strong, and we have strong friends. On the flight home, Trump looked out the window. Desert below, clouds above. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said to his advisor, "This is just the beginning." In the days that followed, the Saudi stock market went up. U.S. weapons companies hit record profits. Protests grew in Washington, London, and Beirut. Some shouted, "Blood money." Others shouted, "Smart business." Who was right? It wasn't clear, but this much was true. The deals were done, the money was moving, and Trump had taken a side. The Gulf was no longer just a partner. It was a player with billions, and now with the power to shape the future. Chapter 3. Oil, Arms, and Agreements. It started with a handshake, but it ended with a signature, and that signature was worth billions. The Gulf leaders wanted power. Trump wanted money, control, and headlines. Together, they built something big. Weapons. Oil. Deals no one could ignore. In Washington, Trump stood at a podium. He smiled. He held up a paper. "Today," he said, "we signed one of the biggest arms deals in history. $50 billion. That's right, $50 billion. Jobs for America, security for our friends, and peace through strength." The crowd cheered. But behind the scenes, the truth was more complicated. Saudi Arabia promised to buy hundreds of U.S. fighter jets. The UAE signed deals for missile systems and cyber defense. Qatar agreed to expand its U.S. airbase and invest in new surveillance tech. The money came fast. Factories in America began working 24 hours a day. "We're hiring again," shouted a manager at a weapons plant in Missouri. This is what America needs. But across the ocean, in the Gulf, things looked different. The leaders were happy. They were building their armies faster than ever before. But some citizens felt fear. Why do we need all these weapons? One student in Doha asked. Is this for safety or something else? In the shadows, critics spoke louder. This isn't about peace, said a U.S. senator. This is about power, about selling silence. Because the deals were not just about weapons. They came with a quiet promise. A promise not to ask too many questions. Questions like, what about the war in Yemen? What about jailed activists in Saudi Arabia? What about the use of surveillance on citizens? Trump didn't ask. He said, I don't interfere. That's their business. We do business. At a private dinner in Abu Dhabi, a U.S. official raised a toast. To new partnerships, he said. But one guest leaned close and whispered, partnership or protection deal? The line was thin, very thin. More oil deals followed. Trump agreed to cut certain taxes for Gulf oil firms. In return, Saudi Arabia and the UAE promised to invest billions in U.S. energy and tech. Solar companies, natural gas plants, AI labs in Arizona and Texas. This is the future, Trump said. Not just oil, smart oil, clean oil, American oil, with Gulf money behind it. On paper, it was perfect. Money for both sides, jobs in America, modern cities in the Gulf. But on the streets, many people felt uneasy. In New York, protesters held signs. Don't trade rights for rockets. Stop selling war. In London, newspapers warned. Trump's Gulf strategy, rich friends, risky future. At a college in Cairo, a young woman gave a speech. They are giving weapons to the people who bomb our neighbors, she said. Is that peace or profit? People clapped. Then the lights went out. The police came. Still, Trump stayed focused. He met with Gulf investors at Mar-a-Lago. He praised them on stage. These guys know business. They build fast, they pay fast, and they don't complain. The crowd laughed, but some reporters frowned. Is the U.S. selling more than weapons? One asked. Are we selling our voice? By mid-2025, the numbers were clear. $110 billion in weapons sold. $80 billion in Gulf investment into U.S. markets. New military bases. New pipelines. New silence. One journalist wrote, "The Middle East is not just buying weapons, they're buying influence, and Trump, he's selling it at a very high price." The winners were easy to name. American weapons companies, Gulf rulers, Trump's business allies. But who were the losers? Maybe the protesters, maybe the people in war zones, maybe the truth. And so the agreements continued. Oil for arms, arms for loyalty, loyalty for silence. Trump said, This is how you win. But others wondered, win what? And for how long? Chapter 4. Billions for America. The numbers were shocking. Billions of dollars, flying across oceans, landing in American banks, stocks, and companies. It was fast, it was big, and it was exactly what Trump wanted. He stepped in front of cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "America is open for business. And our friends in the Gulf, they believe in us. They're not just buying weapons, they're investing in our future." Crowds clapped. Reporters typed fast. The stock market went up. But behind the excitement, some people worried. The deals were everywhere. Saudi money went into U.S. real estate. Towers in Miami, hotels in Chicago, office buildings in Dallas. The UAE bought shares in tech companies, artificial intelligence startups, cybersecurity firms, data farms. Qatar invested in energy, both oil and solar, pipelines, refineries, green technology. It looked like a win. Jobs were created. Construction sites were busy. American CEOs smiled. In Silicon Valley, one engineer said, "We finally got funding. From Abu Dhabi. Without them, we'd be dead." In Texas, a worker at a natural gas plant said, "This is the first time I've had steady work in 5 years. If the Gulf wants to pay, let them." But not everyone was happy. At a university in Boston, a professor raised questions. "Who owns this company now?" she asked her students. "Whose data is in these servers? Who's making the rules?" The classroom went silent. Then a student said, "It's still American, isn't it?" The professor smiled, but said nothing. In Washington, lawmakers argued. One group said, "This is Trump's genius. Foreign money, American strength. Simple." Another group shouted back, "We're selling our future. Today they invest. Tomorrow they control." And there were other concerns, big ones. A Gulf-backed fund bought into a major U.S. news company. Suddenly, articles about Gulf politics disappeared. "Is this censorship?" asked one journalist. "Or just business?" No one gave a clear answer. At a town hall in Ohio, a woman stood up and spoke. "My husband lost his job 2 years ago. Now he's working again, thanks to foreign investment. Do I care where the money came from? I care that we can pay our bills." People clapped. Others looked unsure. Trump tweeted that night, "Billions coming into America, fast and strong. Jobs, growth, success. Thank you to our friends in the Gulf." It got 2 million likes in 1 hour. But behind the screens, in quiet rooms, experts asked hard questions. What if the Gulf pulls out their money? What if they use it to change our politics? What happens if we become too dependent? A quiet voice in a think tank whispered, "It's not just money, it's leverage." In New York, a protest broke out in front of a data center. Signs read, "Not for sale." Who runs America? Billions today, control tomorrow. But many people walked past, busy, tired, just trying to live. In Riyadh, the leaders were pleased. They had access, they had voice, they had power in places they never did before. "We are not just buyers," said one Gulf prince. "We are partners. We are shaping the world." Trump saw it as victory. "Everyone wins," he said. "They get returns. We get jobs. It's a deal." But under the surface, something was changing. America was richer, but also more tied to foreign cash, more willing to look the other way, more careful not to upset their investors. Was it still independence? Or was it a quiet kind of dependence? Was it smart business or silent surrender? The billions kept coming. The growth continued. But the questions didn't stop. Who really owns the future? Chapter 5. The Gulf's Plan. Business or politics? They said it was just business. But was it? Saudi Arabia was buying U.S. jets. The UAE was investing in American tech. Qatar was funding clean energy projects. It all looked like trade, normal, safe, profitable. But behind the scenes, something else was happening. In 2025, the Gulf states had more than oil. They had money. They had data. They had friends in high places. And now, they had Trump. The connection was strong. Trump and the Gulf leaders had known each other for years. They spoke often. They smiled in public. They made deals in private. "Trust me," Trump once said to reporters. "They're very smart people, and they love America." But some wondered, did they love America, or did they want something from it? At a private dinner in Washington, a Saudi advisor leaned in close. "We don't just want weapons," he said. "We want access." Access to what? People, power, policy, emails leaked, messages from Gulf officials to U.S. lawmakers. Support this bill. Vote no on that law. Stay quiet on our human rights issues. Simple, quiet, effective. Some American politicians listened. Why? Because money was everywhere. Campaigns, think tanks, universities. In 1 year, over $500 million from the Gulf flowed into U.S. politics and institutions. At a college in California, students protested. "Our research is funded by the UAE," said one student. "But they tell us what topics we can study. This isn't freedom. This is control." In a New York newsroom, an editor made a change. "Cut that part about Qatar," he told the writer. "They're investors. Let's not upset them." The journalist pushed back. "But it's the truth." The editor looked nervous. "I know, but it's not good for business." Meanwhile, the Gulf embassies stayed busy. Meetings, gala dinners, private briefings with Trump's advisors. A former White House staffer said, "The door was always open to them. They didn't need to wait in line." Back in the Middle East, the Gulf leaders smiled. With Trump in power, the rules were different. He didn't ask about political prisoners. He didn't care about protests. He didn't talk about democracy. You do business, we do business, no lectures, Trump said. In return, they gave him what he wanted. Big arms deals, big checks, big praise. He's the best president for business, said one Gulf billionaire. He understands how the world works. But not everyone agreed. In Europe, leaders were alarmed. This is not diplomacy, said one French official. This is a marketplace. In the U.S., critics warned of a new danger: foreign influence. One headline read, "Gulf states shape U.S. policy with money." Another said, "Is Trump selling access to America?" Trump replied on TV, "No, we're selling strength. We're selling success. They're investing in us because we're winning again." But the truth was messy. A U.S. senator told reporters, "We're not just doing business with them. They're shaping what we say, what we ignore, what we believe." Back in Riyadh, a government official smiled. "Look at what we've done," he said. 10 years ago, we asked for favors. Now, we tell them what we want. So, was it just business? Or something deeper? Something more powerful? Because this wasn't just about oil, not just about guns, not just about tech. This was about control. Control over words, over votes, over choices. Trump gave them the space to move. And they moved fast. Now, they were more than allies. They were players. And the world was watching. Chapter 6: The China Factor. It was quiet in Beijing, but China was watching. Watching Trump. Watching Saudi Arabia. Watching the money, the weapons, the power. And China was not smiling. For years, China had built strong ties in the Gulf. They bought oil. They built roads and ports. They sent engineers, workers, and diplomats. And in return, the Gulf got technology, infrastructure, a partner that didn't ask questions. But now, Trump was back, and he wanted it all. "America is the #1 partner," he said. "No more games, no more double dealing." But it wasn't that simple, because the Gulf had a plan. They didn't want to choose between the U.S. and China. They wanted both. They wanted U.S. weapons and protection. But they also wanted Chinese tech and trade. Smart? Yes. Safe? Maybe not. In Dubai, Chinese tech giants were building smart city systems, cameras, sensors, data networks. At the same time, American companies were selling fighter jets to the same government. One Gulf advisor said, "We trust both sides as long as they pay." Trump heard the reports, and he was furious. "China is stealing from us," he shouted at a rally. "They're taking our deals, our jobs, our friends, not on my watch." Crowds cheered, but behind the scenes, his team was working fast. A plan was born. Simple, bold, dangerous. push China out of the Gulf. Step 1. New trade rules. Trump told U.S. allies in the Gulf, "If you use Chinese tech in your military, you don't get American weapons." Step 2. Secret deals. Trump offered better prices, faster delivery, and even U.S. troops if they reduce ties with China. Step 3. Public pressure. Trump tweeted, "Pick a side, America or China. You can't have both." The Gulf leaders were nervous. They didn't like being told what to do. "We are not children," said one official in Abu Dhabi. "We make our own choices." But the truth was clear. Trump was serious, and he had power. In Washington, the message was the same. A senator said, "If the Gulf wants American weapons, they need to stop playing games with Beijing. This is about national security." In Beijing, officials were angry. One Chinese diplomat said, "America is not offering partnership. They're offering control." But China didn't back down. They offered more. More investment, more tech, more oil deals, with no political demands. In return, China asked for long-term contracts, access to Gulf ports, quiet military partnerships. In 2025, China sent warships to the Indian Ocean, close to Gulf waters. Trump called it a provocation. "This is why we must act now," he said. "We protect the Gulf. China just uses it." The U.S. response was fast. A new naval base in Oman, drone patrols in the Red Sea, satellite sharing deals with Saudi Arabia. It was a clear message. America is watching. But the Gulf, they kept walking the line. They signed a tech deal with China on Monday. They welcomed U.S. generals on Tuesday. Smart or risky? Public opinion was divided. In the U.S., many voters supported Trump. "China is a threat," said one man in Florida. "Trump is protecting us." But others asked, "Are we forcing our friends into a corner? What happens if they choose China?" In Qatar, a university student had a different view. "Why must we pick sides?" she said. "We just want peace, progress, and choices." And maybe that was the real story. The Gulf didn't want war. They wanted options. They were rich, powerful, and smart. They knew how to play both sides. But the game was getting harder. Trump was pushing, China was pulling, and the Gulf was stuck in the middle. For now, they were balancing. But how long could that last? One thing was clear. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about power. And in 2025, the world was choosing sides. Chapter 7. Washington divided. The money kept coming. The headlines kept praising. Jobs up. Billions invested. America first. Again. But inside Washington, something was breaking. Not everyone was clapping. Some lawmakers were proud. "This is smart," they said. "Trump is making deals no one else could." But others were angry. This is not leadership, they warned. This is a sale of our values, our future, and our voice. At a Senate hearing, voices rose. One senator stood up. "Look at the facts," she said. "We gave weapons to Saudi Arabia. They bombed villages in Yemen." She held up a photo, a broken building, a child crying, a U.S.-made missile. This is the cost. Are we okay with that? The room went quiet. But then another senator spoke. "We sold them those weapons, yes, but we also created 100,000 jobs here at home. Missiles don't just fly, they feed American families." Applause, disagreement, division. TV shows played both sides. On one channel, Trump brings back strength. The Gulf trusts him. This is leadership. On another, he's blind to human rights. He listens to money, not morals. In a cafe in Virginia, two men argued over coffee. "You hear about that new deal with the UAE?" said the first. "Biggest one yet. Billions. That's good for us." The other shook his head. "Good for business, maybe. But who are we becoming?" They didn't finish their drinks. Trump didn't care about the noise. He kept moving forward. More deals, more speeches, more wins. At a press conference, he smiled. "America is rich again. Our friends in the Gulf love us. And guess what? They're paying." But the protests grew. In Washington, in New York, even in Los Angeles. People held signs, not with blood money. No more deals with dictators. America is not for sale. One protester shouted, "Where's the line? When do we say enough?" Inside the Pentagon, generals had questions too. "Are we giving them too much tech?" one asked. "What if it's used against us later?" Another warned, "If we train their armies, they could act without us." But others pushed back. "They're our allies," said a defense official. "They keep the region stable, and we need the oil." Trump met with military leaders. "Don't worry," he told them. "We're in control. We give, they follow." But even in his team, there was tension. Some advisors whispered, "What if they stop following?" Congress was split. Some wanted new rules. "No more arms without checks," said a bill. Others wanted no limits. "Let the market decide. Let the president lead." The vote failed. Too divided, too political, too late. In the streets, Americans asked hard questions. Is Trump doing this for us or for himself? A reporter investigated. He found that Trump's old company had new deals, hotels, and towers in Gulf cities. "Conflict of interest?" he asked on live TV. Trump answered with a laugh. "I make deals. That's what I do. And now America wins too." But what does winning mean? A factory reopens in Ohio. A bomb falls in Sana'a. A tech company grows in Texas. A journalist is jailed in Riyadh. Can you have both? Jobs and justice? power and principle? Washington didn't agree. Half the city said, "This is Trump's genius." The other half said, "This is America's fall." And so, the Capitol stayed divided. Loud voices, sharp words, no peace. Trump kept smiling. His supporters kept cheering. The money kept flowing. But the question didn't go away. What are we really trading? And who will pay the price? Chapter 8. What people say in the Arab streets. In the streets of Riyadh, people talked. In the cafes of Doha, people whispered. In the markets of Dubai, people asked questions. The leaders were happy. The money was flowing. But the people? Not so sure. "He's back," said an old man sipping tea. "Trump again. Same face, same games." A younger man replied, "This time he wants more. More oil, more money, and more silence." In 2025, many in the Arab world watched the news and shook their heads. Trump was visiting again, smiling with kings, signing billion-dollar deals, calling it peace through power. But the people in the streets? They saw something else. "We are not blind," said a student in Cairo. "He sells us weapons while we ask for schools." In Amman, a mother spoke to a reporter. "My son wants a future, not a war." In Yemen, the pain was still fresh. Families buried their dead. Children searched for food. And above them, American-made planes flew past. One man pointed to the sky. "They sell them bombs," he said. "We buy coffins." But it wasn't all hate. Some people liked Trump. In the UAE, a businessman smiled. "He understands the Gulf," he said. "He doesn't judge. He makes deals." In Qatar, a young woman said, "Thanks to US Tech, I got a job in AI. That's because of these partnerships." It was not black or white. Some saw opportunity. Some saw betrayal. In Bahrain, a taxi driver turned up the radio. Trump's voice filled the car. "We love the Gulf. We support them. We protect them." The driver laughed. "Protect? We protect your markets. Without our oil, your economy crashes." In Kuwait, a teacher spoke to his class. "What does influence mean?" he asked. A girl raised her hand. "It's when someone tells you what to do, without saying it." The teacher nodded. "And who has influence over us now?" A boy answered, "Trump, and China, and the money." In mosques, the sermons changed. Some imams spoke of power. "Let us rise," they said. "Let us lead, not follow." Others warned of danger. "These deals come with a price," they said. "A price we may pay with our silence or our souls." In Saudi Arabia, the streets were calm, but watched. People knew what not to say. Still, in private, voices grew louder. "My cousin was arrested for tweeting about the war," one man said. "Trump sells our rulers weapons. but says nothing when they silence us. And yet, the gulf continued to grow. Skyscrapers rose, luxury cars filled the roads, new technology changed lives. People were proud and afraid. "We are building the future," said one engineer in Dubai. But who controls that future? In cafes from Beirut to Basra, people debated. Is this progress? Or is this selling out? Are we partners or puppets? In a university in Muscat, a woman stood in front of her class. "Trump is a businessman," she said. "He sells, he shakes hands, he walks away, but we are the ones who live with the result." In Gaza, a teenager watched American drones fly high. "They say they're here for safety," he said, "but I only feel fear." Still, the gulf was not one voice. There was no one answer. Some welcomed Trump's return. Some feared it. Most were caught in between. At a poetry event in Doha, a young man read aloud, "Gold flows like water, but can gold buy justice? Can a handshake erase a bomb? Can silence build peace?" The room was quiet. Then someone clapped. Then everyone did. Trump's words reached the world. But the Arab streets, they had their own voice, not always loud, not always heard, but always there. Chapter 9. The Future of U.S. Gulf Relations. Chapter. Description. Trump made big promises. The Gulf gave big money. But nothing lasts forever. As new voices rose and new problems appeared, people began to ask, what comes next? Chapter 9. The Future of U.S. Gulf Relations. The deals were signed. The money was spent. The speeches were made. But now, the world was asking, what's next? Trump had won. The Gulf had invested. And for a while, both sides smiled. America had new jobs, new factories, new power. The Gulf had new weapons, new tech, and new friends in Washington. But under the surface, cracks were starting to show. In the White House, Trump held a meeting with his team. He pointed to a map of the Middle East. "This relationship is strong," he said, "but it must stay loyal. No China, no Russia, just us." His advisors nodded, but one whispered, "Loyalty doesn't last forever, especially when there's money on the table." In Abu Dhabi, a Gulf official spoke to the press. "Yes, the U.S. is a great partner," he said, "but we do what is best for our country. If that means working with China, we will. If that means buying from Europe, we will." Trump didn't like that. Not one bit. He wanted control. He wanted loyalty. He wanted America first, always. So he made new demands. "Stop buying Chinese tech," he told Gulf leaders. "Choose our side, or lose our support." It was a bold move. Some Gulf leaders agreed. Others stayed silent. Behind closed doors, they were nervous. "We want balance," one said. "We don't want to be trapped." In Saudi Arabia, young people had questions. "Why do we always follow the U.S.?" asked a student. "Do we have our own voice?" In Washington, others had the same fear. "Are we depending too much on Gulf money?" asked a senator. What happens if they stop paying? And then, a new surprise, a new leader, not in the Gulf, not in China, but in America. In early 2026, Trump's political rivals grew stronger. Some were from his own party, some were Democrats. All of them had one thing in common. They didn't like the Gulf deals. One senator said, "We need a new direction. Less weapons, more values, less profit, more peace." The public started listening. Polls showed something new. Americans were tired. Tired of endless deals. Tired of foreign influence. Tired of Trump's loud, risky games. The next election was coming. Fast. And the Gulf was watching very closely. "What if Trump loses?" asked a Qatari official. "What if the next president cancels the deals?" In Riyadh, leaders began to prepare. More trade with Asia. More talks with Russia, just in case. The future was unclear. Would the partnership grow stronger? Would it fall apart? Was this a golden age, or just a moment? In the streets of Dubai, a teacher asked her students, "Do you think America will always be our best partner?" A boy raised his hand. "Maybe. Maybe not. We must have many friends, not just one." In Washington, a reporter ended her story with one question. Was this smart business or a risky romance? So, what comes next? No one knows for sure. Maybe the deals will grow. Maybe new leaders will break them. Maybe the U.S. and Gulf will stay close, or maybe they'll drift apart. But one thing is clear. The world is watching, and the clock is ticking. Chapter 10. A deal that changed everything? It started with a smile, a handshake, a promise. Then came the money. Billions of dollars. Fast. Loud. Unstoppable. But this was not just business. This was something bigger. Trump returned to the White House in 2025. He came back with new energy, new ideas, and a new mission. America first, but not alone. He wanted deals, he wanted dollars, and he wanted friends with deep pockets. The Gulf had what he needed. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, rich, strategic, and ready. They wanted weapons, technology, and respect. Trump gave them all three. In return, they gave him money. And more than money, they gave him influence. In a few short months, the numbers were huge. $110 billion in arms deals, $90 billion in Gulf investments into the U.S. economy, millions in campaign donations and contracts. Trump called it the deal of the century. American companies were happy. They hired more workers, built more factories, made more profit. In Texas, a factory manager said, "We're finally busy again. Thank the Gulf. Thank Trump." But in other places, things looked different. In Yemen, bombs still fell. In Gaza, people still feared the drones. In Syria, Weapons flowed, and peace seemed far away. Back home, the country was divided. Supporters cheered, "Trump knows how to win." The Gulf trusts us again. This is leadership. Critics shouted, "He's selling our future." What about human rights? Is this who we are? The world watched. In Europe, leaders grew quiet. In China, officials took notes. In Iran, generals prepared. Because this wasn't just about the Middle East. This was about who leads the world. In the Gulf, the rulers smiled. Their armies were stronger. Their cities were smarter. Their voice on the global stage louder than ever. But the people? They had questions. In cafes, homes, and schools, they asked, "Is this partnership fair? Do we still have control? Are we buying safety or selling our freedom?" In the U.S., a young journalist investigated. She followed the money. She followed the silence. And she asked, was this deal made for the people or for the powerful? And still, the money moved. Faster, bigger, riskier. Trump stood at a rally and shouted, "This is history. No other president has made deals like this. We are rich again, strong again, and the world knows it." The crowd roared. But outside the stadium, protesters held signs. Jobs don't erase bombs. Blood money is still blood. By the end of 2025, the alliance was clear. The U.S. and the Gulf were closer than ever. Economies were tied together. Defense systems were shared. Leaders called each other brothers. But something else was clear too. This was not just a trade deal. It was a shift. A shift in power, in values, in how the world works. Some called it progress. Others called it a warning. One Gulf activist said, "We thought we were buying protection, but maybe we bought a cage." A U.S. senator stood before Congress and said, "We took the money, we made the deals, but now we must ask, what did we lose?" The Trump-Gulf alliance changed weapons, energy, and technology. But it also changed minds, changed voices, changed the map. Was it a victory or a mistake? Was it smart or selfish? Did it help the people or just the powerful? One thing is sure. In 2025, a deal was made, and the world will not forget it.